When did a workplace drama turn into a paternity plot twist? I literally just found out the woman trying to ruin my career, Evelyn, is claiming she's pregnant with my boss's baby. And I'm sitting here staring at the ceiling of my apartment in the Lakeside Vista complex trying to figure out if I need a lawyer or an exorcist. I mean, I am Samuel Ramirez, 68M. I'm supposed to be cruising towards semi-retirement, not dealing with corporate paternity drama and emotional blackmail that feels like it was written by a poorly funded Hulu limited series. Seriously, buckle up, because the last 72 hours have been a level of chaos I haven't seen since the dot-com bubble burst, and I've been navigating open relationships for nearly 20 years. You'd think I'd be drama-proof. In GL, this is way worse than trying to coordinate weekend schedules for 3 different partners. I don't even know where to start with this dumpster fire. Maybe I should start with the career crossroads part, because that's the whole reason I'm stuck here in this condo complex watching my savings evaporate like spilled coffee on a hot sidewalk. I've been in executive coaching and corporate guidance for decades. I was supposed to have retired last year, but the market being what it is, and frankly my desire to keep earning, meant I took on a high-stress consultancy gig at Omnicorp, trying to restructure their disastrously toxic marketing team. My contract ends in 60 days and I desperately need a glowing recommendation to leverage my next gig, which is why the current situation with Evelyn 28F is making my hair, which is already mostly silver, turn white. Evelyn Lee 28F is the drama creator. She's the VP of Marketing's golden girl, or at least she was until she started sabotaging everyone around her. She has this look, you know, the one like she's perpetually smelling something bad even when she's trying to be charming. She wears too much heavy perfume, smells vaguely of Starbucks blonde roast and existential dread, and she uses her iPhone 14 Pro Max to film every meeting, claiming it's for note-taking efficiency. Spoiler, it's not, it's for leverage. The whole reason I even got deeply involved in the team's internal politics was because of Ann Perry 24F. Ann is the sabotaging team member, technically my junior analyst, but she's the one who first approached me 2 weeks ago. We were at the Panera Bread near the office on Tuesday at 11:47 a.m. I was trying to eat my broccoli cheddar soup and half a turkey sandwich, and she was clearly freaking out. Ann is young, bright, but perpetually stressed. She looks like she hasn't slept since 2020. She has this beat-up Toyota Corolla that rattles when she drives, and she told me she had $1,200 in credit card debt just from trying to keep up appearances in the condo complex where we both live, Lakeside Vista. She leaned across the table and whispered, "Samuel, I need to talk to you about the Q3 report leak." Evelyn told the VP I messed up the projections, but she actually swapped my files. She did it right before the 5:30 p.m. deadline last Friday. I told her, "And that is a serious allegation. Do you have proof?" She pulled out her Samsung Galaxy, its battery dying at 3%, and showed me this frantic text exchange. The texts were mostly hers. "Did you switch the files? Please tell me you didn't switch the files. This is my job." And then one single response from Evelyn, "You're overreacting. I am serious. It was already handled. Don't worry about it." Okay, that raised a flag. A small, faded red flag, but a flag nonetheless. I'm an open relationship navigator, which means I am basically a professional BS detector. Evelyn's response was textbook corporate gaslighting. I started quietly reviewing the files. The data inconsistency meant Omnicorp missed a crucial partnership deal, costing them hundreds of thousands. My job was to streamline their operations, and this felt like a cancerous tumor I needed to excise. I spent 3 days using all the overtime I wasn't paid for, cross-referencing metadata. I found digital footprints. Evelyn had definitely accessed and modified Ann's final report minutes before submission. I scheduled a private meeting with the VP, Mr. Harrison 50M, not important yet, but just wait. I presented the evidence, not accusing Evelyn, but showing the factual timeline of the file corruption. Harrison listened, leaning back in his expensive leather chair, the kind they buy from the Executive Power Move catalog. He looked annoyed not at Evelyn, but at me for forcing him to deal with drama. He sighed. "Samuel, this is compelling. I appreciate your due diligence. But Evelyn is a vital member of the team. She has, shall we say, personal pressures right now." I blinked. "With respect, Mr. Harrison, those pressures shouldn't affect the company's bottom line. She actively sabotaged a junior employee." Harrison stood up. He walked over to the window that overlooked the pathetic, drought-stricken lawn outside the 5th-floor office. He turned back, his expression tight. "Samuel, she's pregnant. And frankly, the timing of your investigation is insensitive." My stomach dropped, but not because of the pregnancy. Because of the sheer, massive manipulative deflection. I wanted to scream, but we were in a quiet, heavily soundproofed office, so I just said, wait, what? What are you saying? Evelyn Lee is pregnant?" Harrison nodded, slightly defensively. "She came to me earlier this week. It's very early days, of course, but given the stress of the environment, she requested some flexibility. And honestly, she just needs some understanding, not a performance review based on faulty data that may or may not have been caused by stress or a lapse in judgment." I felt my heart racing. This was a classic maneuver. Use a massive, life-altering event to instantly achieve political immunity. I'm thinking past me was an absolute clown for not seeing this. "Mr. Harrison," I said, trying to keep my voice even, "that data corruption occurred before she informed you of this development." He just gave me a look that clearly said, "I don't care, old man, stop rocking the boat." I left that meeting feeling absolutely defeated. My mission to clean up the department and thus secure my next consulting role was dead in the water because of a possibly true, possibly completely manufactured pregnancy claim. But that wasn't the end of the day. No, the universe decided I needed a side quest involving financial misconduct and theft, because when it rains, it pours. I live in apartment 3B at Lakeside Vista. It's a nice high-end place which I can only afford because I split the $1,247 monthly rent with a roommate. That roommate is Diane Jones, 56F. Diane is supposed to be the sensible one. She's a recently divorced financial planner who moved in about 8 months ago trying to rebuild her life. She seemed normal. She loved Trader Joe's and crime podcasts like Crime Junkie. We have a joint checking account just for utility bills and groceries. We split everything 50-50. I got home that same chaotic Tuesday evening, maybe around 7:00 p.m., completely drained from the Evelyn drama. My iPhone 14 storage was full, so I had been ignoring notifications all afternoon, but I finally opened my bank app. The checking account looked wrong. We usually keep about $1,000 buffer for emergencies. It was showing $43.67. I thought, okay, maybe a big bill hit. We did have the AC unit serviced a week ago. I scrolled through the transactions. There was a weird charge for $347 labeled emergency plumbing repair. I was literally shaking. We hadn't had plumbing issues since that $85 plumber charge for the clogged drain last winter. I looked at the notes section of our joint financial spreadsheet. Yes, we're those roommates, everything is tracked. No mention of $347. Then I saw a string of ATM withdrawals, 4 separate transactions over the last 2 weeks, all for exactly $200, totaling $800 cash gone instantly. None of these were my withdrawals. I used my personal account for cash, not the utility account. I went into Diane's room. She was watching some trash reality TV on Hulu. She looked up at me, eating Talenti gelato straight from the container. "Hey Sam, rough day?" she asked with that fake, overly saccharine concern. "Diane," I said, holding up my phone, my hands actually shaking. "What is this $347 charge for plumbing repair? And why are there $800 in unexplained cash withdrawals from the utility account?" She didn't miss a beat. She looked me dead in the eyes and said, "Oh, that. Well, the toilet in my bathroom was backing up really bad last weekend. I didn't want to bother you, so I called that expensive 24-hour service. It was a huge emergency, totally unavoidable. And the cash, I needed some pocket money for a weekend trip. I'll Venmo you back next week." I felt the blood drain from my face, the absolute disrespect. She looked so calm, so entitled. "Diane, you did not tell me about a $347 expense," I said, keeping my voice low and dangerously controlled. "And you withdrew $800 of shared money for pocket money without discussing it. That's theft." She scoffed, leaning back on her bed, still holding the gelato. "Oh, come on, Samuel, you're being dramatic. You know I always pay my share. It's fine." "No, it's not fine. We are now $347 short for the Netflix, Disney Plus, and Amazon Prime annual renewals coming up next week. Not to mention the fact that our next grocery bill will be zero because you took the money. I had to use my personal card for that $43.67 Trader Joe's run yesterday." She just stared at me, then took a big spoonful of gelato. I realized I couldn't live with this woman for another second. "I need you out, Diane," I said. "You have 60 days. I'm giving you your 60-day notice right now. Get your stuff and find a new place." The look on her face wasn't shock, it was pure, unadulterated rage. The mask came off instantly. "You can't do that, Samuel. The lease is in both our names. You can't just kick me out because of a little borrowing." "I can and I will. This is a 12-month lease and we're on the month-to-month extension now. I'm serving notice to the complex tomorrow morning." I walked out, slammed the door, and went straight to my laptop to draft the notice. I changed the Wi-Fi password and logged her out of our shared Netflix. Petty maybe, but I was seeing red. I didn't sleep well. The anxiety was a physical weight on my chest. I woke up at 4 a.m. after about 2 hours of troubled sleep, checking my bank app again just to make sure I wasn't dreaming. Nope, $43.67. The next day, Wednesday, I went into work with a new mission. I needed to address the Evelyn situation even if the VP was protecting her. My contract, my reputation, and my sanity depended on it. I walked into the office, coffee at 7 a.m. sharp. I saw Ann Perry, 24F, already at her desk, looking like she'd been crying. I pulled her into a quiet conference room. "And I spoke to Harrison about the report." She looked hopeful. "And he shut it down completely. Said Evelyn is going through personal pressures and implied that since I'm a consultant, I should just focus on deliverables, not internal drama." Ann's eyes filled immediately. "He's protecting her. Is it because she's always flattering him? He says she's pregnant." Ann went utterly silent. Then she burst out laughing. It wasn't a nice, pleasant laugh. It was a panicked, hysterical, short intake of air. "She's what, pregnant?" Ann whispered, still shaking with suppressed laughter. No, she's not. Samuel, I literally saw her yesterday afternoon at 5:00 p.m. in the parking lot. She was drinking a massive Starbucks venti cold brew, loading huge boxes of cheap beer into her BMW, which BTW she absolutely cannot afford. She also had an unlit cigarette dangling from her mouth while she talked on the phone. "That doesn't mean she isn't pregnant," I countered, though I felt the familiar lurch of skepticism returning. "Samuel, she had 5 Jell-O shots at the work happy hour last Friday. And 2 weeks ago she was complaining about having to take the morning after pill because she forgot to track her cycle," Ann insisted, checking her Apple Watch maybe for validation. "She's the most inconsistent, disorganized person I know. She's not pregnant, she's lying." I knew how toxic Evelyn was, but fabricating a pregnancy to avoid a professional consequence, That was next level, that was psychopathic. Okay, Anne, if she's lying to the VP to avoid investigation. That is grounds for dismissal for both of them potentially, I mused. But we need concrete evidence that she is fabricating this. We decided Anne would keep her eyes and ears open. I would continue to focus on my deliverable reports, but I would also start digging into Evelyn's history quietly using my old corporate contacts. The rest of Wednesday was a blur of Zoom meetings and pretending I wasn't simultaneously managing a corporate sabotage investigation and a domestic theft situation. When I got home, Diane was gone. She didn't leave a note, but she left something else. I walked into the kitchen. The $85 Nespresso machine I bought and brought to the apartment was missing. My favorite $200 set of cookware, gone. The decorative IKEA bookshelf that was definitely my property, empty. I realized she didn't just borrow $800. She was actively stripping the place. I immediately pulled up the Ring doorbell footage on my phone. At 10:30 a.m. that morning, right when I was in a crucial meeting about projected Q4 budgets, Diane 56F had loaded her beat-up Toyota Corolla with 4 large boxes and the Nespresso machine. The nerve, the audacity, I furiously texted her, Where is the Nespresso machine? You need to return my property right now. No response. I waited 30 minutes. The read receipt was on. I tried calling. I called her 27 times in 1 hour, nothing. I felt like I was losing my mind. The betrayal of having someone you trusted steal mundane things like a coffee maker felt disproportionately upsetting. I wanted to key her car. I had to change the locks immediately, which cost me another $150 out of my rapidly dwindling personal checking account. I was sobbing in the shower later that night, mascara running everywhere. Yes, 68M executives use light mascara sometimes, don't judge. I was crying not just over the money but over the sheer exhausting cruelty of people. I woke up Thursday morning wired and determined. This was war, both wars. At work, I started asking very subtle, casual questions about Evelyn 28F. I talked to the office manager, Janet. Janet is a huge gossip, bless her soul. I walked into Janet's office and said, Janet, I'm putting together a wellness package suggestion for the new fiscal year. I heard Evelyn might be having a difficult time. Has she submitted any documentation regarding her health needs or insurance? Janet lowered her voice, immediately leaning in. Oh no, Samuel, nothing official. You know how Evelyn is. Drama first, paperwork later. She just told Mr. Harrison she's pregnant. She hasn't even booked an OB/GYN appointment yet. I tried to help her with the insurance forms. You know how much prior authorization is needed with our plan, but she just keeps deflecting. Deflecting how? She said she's using a private service and doesn't want to get involved with the corporate insurance until she's out of the danger zone. But honestly, she hasn't put in a request for time off. She hasn't changed her work habits. She still drinks 3 giant energy drinks a day. And NGL, Samuel, I was her age not long ago. When you're early pregnant, you're usually throwing up, not ordering Taco Bell 3 times a week. Okay, the math wasn't mathing. Evelyn hadn't submitted any insurance claims, hadn't scheduled PTO hours, and hadn't changed her highly caffeinated lifestyle. This was beyond suspicious. I realized I needed to confirm one thing. Is Harrison the VP the father, or is Evelyn just using him as an impenetrable shield? Later that day, I was sitting at my desk trying to process a particularly frustrating data set when Evelyn walked by. She stopped at my cubicle. Samuel, she said too sweetly. I heard you've been doing some aggressive analysis of the Q3 reports. I really hope you aren't trying to spread rumors about me, especially now. She paused, putting her hand over her flat abdomen. She wasn't showing, of course, but the gesture was so obviously calculated, I almost laughed in her face. Evelyn, I report facts. The fact is the data was corrupted and cost the company a significant partnership. Who corrupted it is secondary to resolving the process failure, I lied smoothly. I trust Mr. Harrison is supporting you fully during this time. She smiled, a thin, predatory smile. Oh, he's very supportive, very invested. Then she lowered her voice, leaning closer, smelling strongly of that expensive, cloying perfume. You know, Samuel, the stress of this job is really starting to get to me. If my situation were to worsen, especially if I had, say, a stress-induced complication, well, that would certainly make the work environment look highly toxic, wouldn't it? Especially for the people who were causing the stress. It was a direct threat. If I kept digging, she would claim that any setback in her supposed pregnancy was directly my fault, leading to a massive HR nightmare and guaranteed destruction of my career prospects at OmniCorp. I felt my stomach clench. That night Thursday, I went home and dealt with the final chapter of the Diane saga. I opened the refrigerator. She had taken all the good containers, all the Ben & Jerry's, and even my specialized almond milk. Worse, she had cleaned out the spice rack and taken the expensive cutlery. I had filed a police report earlier, mostly just to document the theft, but I knew nothing would come of it. This was just petty revenge for me daring to set a boundary. I was pacing my living room when my phone pinged. It was Ann 24F texting me frantically. Samuel, are you home? I need to tell you something. I'm in the parking lot in my Corolla. Gate code is 4455. I opened the door immediately. Ann was standing there looking like she'd seen a ghost, clutching her phone. I found something, she gasped, stepping inside apartment 3B. I was on TikTok trying to relax, but then the algorithm showed me a video. It was an influencer. She's obsessed with the gym and supplements. Ann frantically pulled up the TikTok video. It showed a ridiculously fit woman in expensive workout gear talking about her recovery journey after a difficult surgery. Look at the comments, Ann urged. I looked at the comments section. Right near the top, a username I recognized instantly. Evelyn is winning. The comment read, OMG, I have my appointment next week. I'm so nervous but excited for the recovery, so worth it. So, I asked, what's the surgery? Ann pointed at the influencer's video titled Day 3 Post-Op, My Lipo and BBL Journey. Evelyn is getting plastic surgery next week, Samuel, liposuction and a BBL. You cannot get elective plastic surgery like that if you are pregnant. Absolutely cannot. It is medically impossible. I stared at the comment. The date stamp was just 3 days ago. Everything finally clicked. The audacity. She didn't want corporate insurance because the claim would show she was prepping for a major elective cosmetic procedure, not a pregnancy. She was fabricating the entire thing to stop the sabotage investigation and threaten anyone who tried to pursue it. The rage I felt was overwhelming. I was not even mad, I was just impressed by the level of calculated malice. We need proof that Evelyn is winning is Evelyn Lee, I stated, my voice completely flat, and nodded. I already checked the influencer's profile. She tagged her friend in a photo from 6 weeks ago, a group shot at an expensive rooftop bar downtown, and look, and zoomed into the background of the photo. Standing there holding an expensive cocktail and wearing the exact hideous green cocktail dress Evelyn wore to the last corporate mixer was Evelyn Lee. And the friend tagged, she had the same last name as the influencer. They were sisters, it was definitive. Evelyn was not pregnant, she was planning major cosmetic surgery and using the lie to protect herself from the fallout of corporate theft and sabotage. I told Anne, go home, get some rest. You're going to HR first thing tomorrow morning Friday. We have a paper trail of sabotage, financial theft, and now documented fraud intended to manipulate management. I finally felt a surge of relief mixed with terrifying adrenaline. I had the smoking gun. I could dismantle Evelyn and finally secure my contract. I sat down, feeling exhausted but wired, and started drafting the comprehensive HR report. I worked until 1 a.m., meticulously citing every piece of evidence. I finally collapsed into bed, anticipating the massive confrontation I would orchestrate at 8 a.m. the next morning. Then around 2 a.m., I heard a pounding on the condo door, not knocking, pounding. I walked toward the door, checking the peephole. It wasn't Anne, it was Evelyn Lee, 28F. She was hysterical, makeup smeared, wearing a messy tracksuit. She had obviously driven over here to the Lakeside Vista complex and she looked utterly undone. I didn't open the door. Samuel, open this door right now, I know you're in there, she screamed through the thick wood. I need to talk to you, I know you've been digging, you old bastard, you don't understand what's happening. Go home, Evelyn, I will talk to you at the office, I said, my voice muffled but firm. No, you don't understand, I never meant to hurt Anne, I never meant to mess up the files, it was an accident. I was trying to cover it up, yes, but you don't know the real reason. She started crying even harder. The pregnancy, she sobbed, still pounding the door, the pregnancy is real, it has to be real, it's the only way to save myself now. I paused, confused, the BBL comment, the energy drinks, the lack of documentation. Evelyn, stop lying, you are scheduled for cosmetic surgery next week, I know about the TikTok account. She suddenly stopped pounding, the silence was deafening, then she laughed, a shaky, manic sound. The BBL is next week, yes, but I need the pregnancy more. You don't get it, Samuel, Harrison is not the father. Harrison is my ticket, but the real father, he is going to ruin me. I need you to back off or I swear to God I will go to HR and tell them that you forced me to do that surgery, that you pressured me so much to fix the department that I had a breakdown and am now risking the baby's health because of your abusive coaching style. My jaw literally dropped. The leap from defending her lie to actively manufacturing a lie about me was insane. Evelyn, that is slander, I hissed through the door. She whispered back, her voice suddenly low, dark, and utterly terrifying. Slander? Oh honey, you think I care? You think I care about that or your little corporate consulting contract? You know what I care about, the fact that the real father is not letting me keep the baby, and if I don't give him what he wants, I won't just lose my job, I'll lose everything. Then she shrieked, clearly completely unhinged now. You have to help me make the pregnancy real, Samuel. You have to. She pounded on the door one last time, a massive echoing slam that rattled the frame. I heard her stumble away and eventually heard the tires of her BMW squeal as she sped out of the complex, probably violating the 15 mph speed limit. I stood there, sweat pouring down my back, staring at the scarred peephole. The false pregnancy claim was the least of it. It was a cover story for an even bigger, darker life-or-death drama she was dragging me into. I had a detailed HR report ready to go in 6 hours, but now if I submitted it, she would retaliate with a catastrophic lie that would not only destroy my career, but potentially land me in a legal black hole. And now I have to figure out who the real father is, what he wants, and why Evelyn thinks making the false pregnancy real is the only way to save her life. I'm sitting here 3 a.m. Friday morning and I'm honestly terrified. I don't know what to do. If I go to HR, I'm fired and sued. If I stay silent, I'm enabling a psychopath who is trying to drag me into a massive criminal conspiracy. I literally have no idea what happens next. Tell me I'm not crazy. Tell me what to do. Need advice ASAP. My 60-day contract renewal hangs in the balance, and I'm pretty sure a stolen Nespresso machine is the least of my problems now. I literally had to take a shower at 3:30 a.m. just to rinse the adrenaline off my skin. I couldn't focus. Evelyn's threat, the raw, unhinged quality of it was worse than the theft, worse than the corporate sabotage. I mean, I'm 68 years old. My dating life is complicated, but it's consenting and clear. The idea of being dragged into an accusation of career-driven fetal endangerment felt genuinely nauseating. I realized I couldn't go to HR, not yet. I had the facts about the BBL and the swapped files, but Evelyn had weaponized the threat of pregnancy, and right now, her perceived victimhood trumped my evidence, especially if she screamed loud enough about me being an abusive old executive. I sat at my kitchen counter, drinking black coffee that tasted like despair, staring at my HR report. I hit save, closed the file, and then archived it deep in my cloud storage, not deleting it but putting it on ice. My contract negotiation was now entirely secondary to securing my personal safety and reputation. By 5:30 a.m. I texted Ann 24F, me Ann, do not go to HR this morning. Situation escalated dramatically last night. We need a new strategy. Meet me at that god-awful Starbucks at 7:30 a.m. Bring your phone. She responded instantly. OMG, is DINE back? Me no worse. I met Ann at Starbucks. I was carrying my battered laptop and a full heart rate monitor, TBH. I told her everything. Evelyn screamed at my door, about the real father, about the BBL being a cover, and about the massive career-ending lie shed constructed against me. Ann was horrified. She looked at me, her eyes wide. Samuel, this is not just corporate drama. This is like crime TV territory. NGL, I agree, I said, stirring my lukewarm espresso. We need to find out who the father is and what he is threatening her with. Why does she think the pregnancy has to be real if she's getting plastic surgery next week? Ann mused, rubbing her temples. That makes no sense. I explained my theory. She probably miscarried recently or had an early termination, or maybe even the BBL is a cover for a procedure to remove the pregnancy, but she realized that the VP was protecting her only because of the fetus. If the fetus is gone, Harrison drops her and she faces the music for the Q3 report. She needs the pregnancy to be real enough to manipulate Harrison, but she also needs to escape the real father. Ann shuddered. This is too much. Okay, so who does she talk to outside of work? Janet, the office manager, said Evelyn was trying to keep her insurance details private until she was out of the danger zone, I recalled. That's how we found out about the BBL, which is basically elective surgery. But what if the private service wasn't a doctor but a lawyer or private detective? We realized the only place to start was the TikTok evidence. If Evelyn was close enough to this influencer to be tagged, the influencer likely knew more. And being 24 and TikTok fluent, immediately went to work. Okay, her name is Brianna Smith, the influencer, Ann mumbled, scrolling rapidly. Evelyn is friends with her sister Chelsea Lee. Wait, Lee, that's Evelyn's last name. Is Chelsea her sister? Probably. The group photo had 5 people and the caption was family dinner. Okay, I'm checking Chelsea's profile. Chelsea Lee's profile was private, but Ann, using some sort of black magic that only Gen Z understands, found Chelsea's Venmo activity. I swear these kids are spies. Look, Ann whispered, turning her phone to me. Chelsea made a payment to Evelyn 2 months ago. Labeled bail money, sorry about the car. Bail money? Evelyn had been arrested. This just kept getting better. Now look at Chelsea's recent Venmo feed, Ann directed. She made a payment yesterday, $500 to a user named Maxby. The note on the Venmo was simple. For the lawyer fees, he can't win. Maxby, I repeated, feeling a surge of energy. Ann, find out who Maxby is. Ann used Google and some advanced Instagram stalking techniques that felt vaguely illegal. 10 minutes later, she pulled up a LinkedIn profile. Maxwell Benson, 30, works for a regional investment firm, listed as recently divorced on his Facebook profile, and he has a picture with Evelyn Lee from last Christmas. Maxwell Benson, I repeated, writing it down. If he's paying lawyer fees, he's involved in some kind of legal dispute with Evelyn. Ann found a news clipping linked to Maxwell's old Facebook. A minor piece about a domestic disturbance last summer at a high-end restaurant where police were called due to an altercation involving personal property. The article mentioned Maxwell Benson and Evelyn Lee. Okay, so this guy is clearly the one causing the trouble, I concluded. He is likely the real father, or at least the person she's terrified of. I told Ann, look, I need to focus on my job today. I'm giving my last major deliverable presentation on restructuring the accounts department. I cannot have any drama today. You need to keep digging into Maxwell Benson. Find out if he's threatening her and why she thinks the only way out is to keep up the pregnancy facade. Ann nodded, suddenly serious. I'll start looking for public records, restraining orders, anything messy. I went to Omnicorp, determined to maintain a facade of calm corporate professionalism. Update that same Friday, 11:30 a.m. The morning was a blur. I crushed the presentation, NGL. My numbers were perfect, my solutions innovative, and my delivery was impeccable. Mr. Harrison, the VP, looked impressed. I felt a fleeting sense of victory. My 60-day contract felt salvageable, provided the Evelyn bomb didn't drop. Then I checked my personal phone during lunch. Ann had sent me a novel of text messages. And Samuel, OMG. You are not going to believe this. And Maxwell Benson, the guy, is not the father. He is Evelyn's ex-fiancé. They broke up dramatically 6 months ago after she allegedly stole $15,000 from his savings account, unproven but public rumor. He is currently suing her for breach of contract on a shared property loan. And that $500 payment from Chelsea was for a defense lawyer. Evelyn is drowning in debt and legal issues. The bail money was from 2 months ago when she got a DUI downtown. She is a train wreck, but the real bomb, I found a court filing. It's a petition for a protection order filed by Evelyn 2 weeks ago against her boss, VP Harrison. I dropped my turkey sandwich. Harrison, the man who was currently protecting her like she was the last golden goose. And the protection order was denied, but the reason she filed it is massive. She claimed that Harrison, who is indeed the father, I found a text where she confirms this to Chelsea, was demanding she terminate the pregnancy because he is married. He threatened to ruin her career and make sure she never worked in the city again if she didn't comply. He's also allegedly physically threatening her. She included vague text messages as evidence. I reread that. Evelyn wasn't fabricating the pregnancy for the BBL. She was using the false reason for the pregnancy, stress, hormones, to deflect from the fact that her boss, Harrison, who she was supposed to be suing for harassment and threats, was actively trying to pressure her into an abortion to save his marriage. The BBL was likely just another impulsive, financially irresponsible thing she was doing to cope, not the root cause. Root cause was Harrison trying to maintain his perfect suburban life while bullying Evelyn into silence. And I had just accused her of corporate fraud and sabotage to the VP's face. I instantly saw the new reality. Harrison wasn't shielding her, he was managing her. He knew the pregnancy was real and he knew she was volatile. He was giving her flexibility and understanding to keep her quiet about the paternity and the threats, hoping she would disappear with the baby. But she was cornered. She was getting sued by her ex-fiancé, drowning in debt, and Harrison was threatening her livelihood. When she screamed at my door that the pregnancy had to be real to save her, she meant she had to leverage the baby against Harrison, possibly to extract a large financial settlement or to get protection from his anger. The BBL/liposurgery might have been her exit strategy, a huge confidence boost before she went to war with Harrison, or maybe she was planning to use the insurance money to pay for it, thinking she'd get a settlement before the due date. I suddenly felt a wave of empathy for Evelyn, who was still toxic and manipulative but also clearly terrified and deeply compromised. She wasn't just a corporate villain, she was a victim spiraling out of control, pulling everyone down with her. My problem remained. If I turned in my HR report about the file sabotage, Harrison would immediately fire me and claim I was trying to stress his employee, using the very situation he created as my weapon. He had the power, I didn't. I needed external help. I needed to move fast before Harrison realized I was sniffing around his private life. Saturday morning, dealing with Diane, I spent Friday evening canceling our joint bank account and forwarding the lease notice to the complex management. I'm trying to negotiate an early termination fee for my side just to escape the drama, which will cost me about $1,500. Financial pain, but worth the peace. I woke up Saturday and went to the police station to add the Nespresso machine and cookware to my theft report. It felt ridiculous listing a $200 pot, but it was the principle. I came back to Lakeside Vista and found a sticky note on my door. It was from Diane 56F. The note, written in aggressive red marker, said, "I know you changed the Wi-Fi password. I need access to the utility files before I move out. You're insane. Give me the password or I am calling the landlord about the structural damage you caused in the kitchen." Structural damage? I looked at the kitchen. The only damage was my existential crisis. I took a picture of the note and texted it to my lawyer friend Mike, a divorce attorney but good in a crisis. Mike texted back instantly, "Do not engage, do not reply. If she contacts the landlord, forward them this note and the police report. She's bluffing because she can't watch Hulu." I changed the locks again just to be safe and moved all my remaining valuables to a storage unit nearby. I was essentially living in a high-end dorm room with nothing but my mattress and my laptop, but it was mine. Monday morning, the confrontation and the pivot. I walked into work Monday morning feeling like I was walking into a firing squad. I ignored Evelyn, who looked surprisingly cheerful, and Anne, who looked terrified. I went straight to Mr. Harrison's office and closed the door. He looked up annoyed. "Samuel, I thought we agreed to let the Evelyn situation rest." I sat down feeling strangely calm, the calmness of utter terror perhaps. "Mr. Harrison, I understand the need for discretion regarding Evelyn's personal situation, and I apologize if my earlier attempts to address the Q3 report leak were perceived as insensitive." I paused. "However, the Q3 leak remains a critical process failure that needs documentation regardless of personnel circumstances." He leaned back, his face tightening. "What are you getting at, Samuel?" "I'm getting at the fact that I have information that affects the safety and legal liability of OmniCorp, and I believe we need to discuss a strategy that protects the company first and then protects my contract." I looked him straight in the eye. "I know about Maxwell Benson, Evelyn's ex-fiancé. I know about her debt issues, and I know about the protection order she filed against you 2 weeks ago and why she filed it." The color completely drained from Harrison's face. He looked like a man who just realized he was standing on a landmine. "Samuel, you need to understand this is a private matter," he stammered. "It stopped being a private matter when she used company resources and her position to cover it up, causing financial damage to the corporation, and then leveraged the resulting situation against me to protect your secret," I countered, keeping my voice low. "The fact that she is pregnant by you, and you were pressuring her to terminate the pregnancy while she was simultaneously facing a lawsuit and dealing with a DUI, means this entire marketing department is sitting on a major HR and ethics violation bomb." I pushed a single piece of paper across his desk. It wasn't the HR report. It was a pre-drafted non-disclosure agreement and separation agreement for myself. "My contract ends in 60 days. I will finish my deliverables. I will ensure the Q3 data corruption is documented as a process failure, and I will not mention Evelyn, your relationship, or the paternity situation to anyone. In exchange, I need 2 things. He nodded frantically. "Name them." 1. A guaranteed glowing recommendation from you personally ensuring my next contract is secured. And 2. A payout equivalent to 6 months of my consulting salary, signed today, ensuring my silence and immediate exit at the end of the 60 days. I watched him calculate the cost of my silence versus the cost of a massive public lawsuit involving a pregnant, volatile subordinate and an executive pressuring her into an abortion. The 6-month salary was a high figure, but it was cheaper than a lawsuit. Harrison swallowed hard. "I need to speak to corporate counsel." "You have 1 hour," I said, standing up. "I will be sending this information via encrypted email to my lawyer in 60 minutes. If I don't have a signed term sheet agreement in place by 5:00 p.m. today, I will have no choice but to escalate the complete unedited file to HR, detailing the entire conspiracy, including your efforts to silence Evelyn and the threat she made against me." I walked out. My legs were shaking so violently I had to lean against the wall in the hallway. I felt sick but also incredibly powerful. I hadn't succumbed to the drama, I had pivoted it into leverage. I went back to my desk and spent the next 7 hours staring at my screen, pretending to work, while every nerve ending screamed. Anne looked over at me a dozen times, terrified. I just gave her a tiny nod. At 4:58 p.m., Mr. Harrison's executive assistant walked over to my desk. She handed me a sealed envelope. Inside was a professionally drafted agreement. 6 months' salary, a guarantee of a perfect reference, and a strict NDA stating I was leaving amicably to pursue other opportunities. It was signed by Harrison and the Omni Corp legal department. I signed it immediately, took a picture, and sent the confirmation to my lawyer. I was free. 3 days later, the fallout, I finished my last 2 deliverables by Wednesday, packed my personal items, mostly just old notebooks and a dying desk plant, and walked out of Omni Corp at 5:00 p.m. sharp. I didn't look back. I didn't say goodbye to Evelyn. I gave Anne a quick, quiet hug. Anne was still worried. What about Evelyn? Did we just leave her to the wolves? Anne, Evelyn is an adult, I said gently. She is manipulative, but she's also leveraged the situation herself. She now has a VP who is terrified of her and a consulting firm that is staying silent. She's getting her silence pay off one way or another. My job was to protect myself and to expose the corporate rot, which I did by forcing Harrison to buy my silence. I told Anne to keep her head down and focus on her work. I told her to get out of that toxic department as soon as she could. That evening, I got a text from Anne. Evelyn quit. She's cleaning out her desk. No one knows why. She just said she's pursuing a stress-free opportunity to focus on her health. LOL, she leveraged the settlement and bounced. Honestly, I respect the hustle, even if it was evil hustle. A week went by where I didn't step foot in Lakeside Vista during the day. I was terrified Deanne would confront me. I had hired movers to come on the upcoming Saturday. I didn't want to risk any more theft or drama. My financial situation was still a mess, despite the Omni Corp settlement being initiated. It takes time for those funds to hit. In the meantime, I was paying double rent, my half of Lakeside Vista, plus the $1,500 termination fee, plus the deposit on my new, smaller apartment, and I was still recovering from Diane's theft. I finally reached out to my partners in the open relationship. They were completely supportive, bless them. They listened to the whole saga, the corporate drama, the BBL, the theft, the weeping in the shower. One of them, Marco, actually came over with a cheap French press and a bag of decent coffee just to replace the Nespresso machine. You need to get a hobby that isn't corporate warfare, Samuel, Marco joked, setting up the coffee. He was right. I had spent so long navigating complexity in both my personal and professional life that I hadn't realized how desperately lonely I was, even living with a roommate and having multiple partners. I was isolated. I was stress-eating microwave dinners and drinking too much cheap wine. I couldn't sleep properly. The confrontation with Evelyn had left me emotionally raw. I realized I needed to deal with the root of my anxiety, which wasn't just Diane or Evelyn, but the absolute exhaustion of constantly managing other people's chaos. That realization hurt. I'm an open relationship navigator. My whole identity is built on helping people manage complexity, but I wasn't managing my own. By Tuesday, I was back to basics. I was packing boxes when I found a flyer taped to the community message board months ago, right near the gym. It was peeling off the cork. It read, Career Crossroads and Life Transitions Support Group. Meets Wednesdays 7 p.m. Clubhouse Room C Anonymous. Drop-ins welcome. I ripped the flyer off. I needed a support group, desperately. I was 68, unemployed, recovering from corporate blackmail and domestic theft, and preparing to move into a tiny, expensive apartment after being paid hush money. This was my career crossroads. Wednesday night, Clubhouse Room C. I showed up 10 minutes early. Clubhouse Room C smelled faintly of stale coffee and desperation. There were about 10 chairs set up in a circle. I sat down, feeling awkward and ancient. The first person to walk in was a woman in a nice suit, maybe mid-40s. She looked tired. We exchanged nervous smiles. The leader, a kind woman named Carol, started the session with a round of introductions. We don't share names here, just first initials and what brought us to the crossroads, Carol instructed. When it got to me, I said, Hi, I'm S. I recently left a consulting gig under complicated circumstances, which has forced me to reevaluate what I want in retirement, and I'm dealing with some financial and domestic boundary issues. A woman 2 seats away introduced herself next. Hi, I'm D. I'm currently going through a very messy divorce and eviction situation, trying to find a new place to live while dealing with someone who has been very aggressive about property division. My head snapped up. I looked at her. She was wearing a cheap track suit and looked familiar. D was Diane Jones, 56F, my stealing roommate. I felt the blood drain from my face for the 3rd time in 2 weeks, of course. Of course, we would both end up in the same hyper-local anonymous support group at our mutual condo complex Clubhouse. The universe truly hates me. I gripped the arms of my chair so hard my knuckles were white. Diane didn't look at me. She seemed genuinely distressed. She was describing her situation, how her ex-husband left her with nothing, how she felt entitled to certain items because she was trying to rebuild her life, and how she was scared she would be homeless soon because the person she lived with had served her a 60-day notice. She wasn't describing my stolen property. She was describing her feelings about why she stole my property. I wanted to leap across the circle and scream, You are talking about my Nespresso machine, you monster. But I was S. I had to remain anonymous. I had to maintain my peace. I was here to process my chaos, not create more. I took a deep breath. I listened to Dee finish her share. I saw her anxiety, the genuine fear of insolvency. It didn't excuse the theft, but it provided the context for the desperation that turned her into a petty criminal. When it was time for feedback, I raised my hand. Dee, I said, keeping my voice steady, thank you for sharing. It sounds like you are dealing with immense financial pressure and a deep sense of loss. When we feel that desperate, sometimes we make choices that damage the trust of the people around us, and those choices have consequences. It's painful to lose trust, both for the person who lost the trust and the person who violated it. But sometimes, when you're at a crossroads, the only way forward is to accept the loss, take accountability for your choices, and start rebuilding your integrity, even if it feels like everything is stacked against you. I wasn't talking to Diane the thief. I was talking to Dee the desperate human being. I was also talking to Samuel the consultant, who had just used corporate blackmail, even if justified, to secure his exit. We were all flawed. Diane looked up, slightly startled by my intense commentary. She nodded slowly, genuinely listening. "Thank you, she mumbled. I didn't expose her. I didn't get revenge. I simply maintained the boundaries I had set and refused to engage in the drama. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. I realized I didn't need a lawyer or an exorcist. I needed boundaries and perspective." The support group, ironically, provided both. Friday, final notes and moving on the movers came Saturday. I packed up my tiny portion of the apartment, changed my mailing address, and left Lakeside Vista without incident. Diane wasn't there. She was probably at a friend's place, or more likely plotting her next move. I didn't care. The lease was settled, the termination fee was paid, and I was gone. I am now typing this from my new apartment. It's smaller, but the air smells clean, and the only drama is the terrible reality TV my neighbors watch too loudly. I had a final check-in with Anne, 24F. She's doing great. She applied for a lateral move to a different, less toxic department at OmniCorp, and Harrison, still terrified of any HR attention, pushed it through immediately. She's now working for the CFO's office, completely out of Evelyn's reach. She told me she finally paid off her $1,200 credit card debt using the bonus she got from the new position. Small wins. And Evelyn, 28F. The gossip is that she used the massive settlement from Harrison to pay off Maxwell Benson's lawsuit, pay for the BBL, which she apparently got, and has vanished to Florida to start a new life. I assume she's managing the pregnancy situation from a safe distance, possibly planning to raise the child alone and never speak to Harrison again. A terrible, expensive solution to a terrible situation, but one she chose. I sincerely hope she gets the help she needs, but I also hope she stays 3,000 miles away from me. As for Diane, 56F, I still see her every Wednesday at the support group. Yes, I kept going. It's my commitment to managing my own chaos now. She never brought up the Nespresso machine. We are S&D, two people struggling with life transitions, united by a shared terrible history, separated by strict professional silence. She moved out of 3B yesterday. I saw her moving truck. She's moving far away. Good. I'm starting to interview for executive coaching gigs that don't involve toxic corporate cultures. I'm focusing on nonprofits and mentorship. My heart rate is lower. I am eating better. This whole mess, the theft, the corporate blackmail, the false pregnancy claims forced me to confront my exhaustion. I realized that my open relationships, while fulfilling, were also a symptom of my desire to constantly manage complex situations. I needed to learn to slow down and prioritize my own peace. My biggest takeaway is that sometimes, the only way to win a messy, chaotic fight is not to bring out the biggest gun, but to simply walk away with your integrity mostly intact. I still feel guilty about using Harrison's secret for my financial gain, but that 6-month payout gives me the breathing room I need to truly retire on my own terms, not the market's terms. I might be 68 and newly unemployed, but I'm finally navigating toward a life that prioritizes calm over complexity. I'm at a crossroads, but this time I am the only one holding the map. We'll update if Diane tries to Venmo request me for that $347 plumbing repair charge. NGL, I'm expecting it, but I'll leave her on read. Thanks for letting me vent. This Reddit community really saved my sanity. Anyway, that's the update. Wish me luck with the new life. I'm gonna need it.